So we are making dot plots and histograms today. They are two different types of graphs that we can use to represent data. So dot plots we use with discrete values. Discrete values are individual specific numbers that have limited options. So an example of something that would be a discrete value is if I were to count the number of students in each of my class. That is something that I can sit here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not going to keep doing that. So the number of students. Something else. The number of pets each of you have. So anything that I can count is a discrete value. So dot plots we are going to use with those countable values. So things that I can sit here and count and get whole numbers for. When we are making a dot plot, some things to remember. We're going to draw a number line across the bottom, and then on your assignment, the number lines are already drawn. We will look at the minimum and maximum when we are labeling a number line to make sure that we get enough spots on there. And then we draw a little X above every data value. They're called dot plots, but I always use X's instead of dots because it's easier to draw. You can draw dots if you want to. It's up to you. Okay. So for discrete values, we are going to make dot plots for things that we can count. For continuous values, we are going to be using histograms. So continuous values are any value in a range between 2 points, including decimals / I wrote too big for this, fractions. So decimals and fractions would be in a range in between 2 points. Okay, some examples of some continuous values are height, weight, distance, things like that. How do you guys find your height? Tape measure. How do you find distance? A ruler. So what are we doing with those tools anytime we're finding these continuous values? We are measuring them. So continuous values are always going to be measurable. So we will use histograms with measurable values. Or we can also use it with data that has a large range. So if the data is super spread out, we might want to use a histogram. Okay, so some things to remember when making a histogram. We're going to look over our data and we're going to pick appropriate intervals. So instead of saying on our graph, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to say this one's 1 through 5, 6 through 10, 11 through 15, things like that. After we pick those intervals, we are going to label our horizontal axis using those intervals. On your assignment, I already labeled the horizontal axis for every problem for you because I didn't want to have to check them if everyone's horizontal axis was different. So I was honestly making it easier for myself. Okay, And then after that, we shade one box above each. We shade one box above each interval for each value that falls in that interval. Okay, there's one little definition down here that I added on, which is an outlier. You'll need this one time on your assignment. An outlier is a value in a data set that is very different from other values. So if we were to ask you or if I were to look at my test scores and everyone got between a 70 and a 90, and then one person got 102, that 102 would be the outlier. So the one that's way different than the others is the outlier. All right, let's go ahead and flip this open. We are going to make one dot plot and we are going to make one histogram. Okay. 20 students recorded the number of hours they spent watching TikToks over the weekend. This is all made up data. Label the number line appropriately and construct a dot plot for this data. So, look through that data. What is the lowest number that you guys see? 4, okay. What's the highest number that you see? 11? Okay. All right, so we can go ahead and label. There's always going to be a line underneath your graph that we want to label what we are talking about on. So we are talking about hours here, so we want to label this with hours, because otherwise we don't know if we're saying days, minutes, frogs, dogs. Okay, then we need to label from 4 to 11. We've got plenty of space here, so we actually have space to start at 1. So you guys can just start at 1 and label from there. We'll be able to get from 1 to 14. Was that thunder? Interesting. Good morning. Go ahead and grab a note sheet, please. Grab a note sheet, please. Hey, so then from there, what we do is we are going to draw one X or dot. I don't care what you do, but you need to do them consistently over each data point for where that point is. So I like to go in order of numbers and not in order of how they're listed because it makes it easier. So I'm going to cross off my 4, and I'm going to put a 4 here. I don't see any 5s, but then I'm going to go count up how many 6s I have. I've got 1, 2, 3 6s. Where's the 4th one? Oh, 4 6s. Thank you. So then I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 X's above my 6. Okay, for my 7s, I see 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And I cross off as I go. So that way, if I miss one, at the end, I'll see I didn't cross it off and I can add it where it goes. Okay, I'm going to stop narrating this out loud. Go ahead and keep working. All right, so we've got all of our data points put down here. It told me 20 students at the beginning. If I want to count real quick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. If you want to count and make sure you've got all of them, you can. But that is what it looks like to create a dot plot. I like to use little X's because I think they're easier to draw than like drawing in a little circle every time. One thing I do want to point out, it's important that you make your X's all the same size. So see how mine are like in a pretty straight line here and a pretty straight line here. You can tell that this one's taller than this one. If you are making your dot plot and you make little X's over here and you make huge ones here, this only has 2 X's on it, but it looks like it's taller than that. We do not want that. We want to make them consistent. So it doesn't matter how small or big you make them, but make them consistent. All right. Then after each graph, we ask a couple questions usually. So this one says, by looking at the dot plot, where is the approximate center of the data, and what does this mean? So to find the center of the data, we are going to count from the outsides, just like we did with the median yesterday. And it's asking us for the approximate center, so we just need to get close. So these two kind of cancel each other out, and then I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my approximate center is here at 8 hours. And what that would mean is that most students spent about 8 hours watching TikToks, which that algorithm can get you. Hey, the one below this next one, says the times and seconds it took to download 30 apps are given below. Choose appropriate intervals and construct a histogram for this data. So a histogram is like a bar graph where the bars touch. And the reason why the bars touch is because the intervals touch each other. So on this one, the lowest number I see is 17. I don't think I see anything lower than that. And then the highest number I see, is there 16? Okay, 16. And then highest I see a 55, 56, 56, 64, 65. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we go from the teens to the 60s. So for this graph, we are going to go in intervals of 10 seconds. So first of all, we want to label this with seconds down here, because otherwise are we saying minutes, hours, months, days, years, frogs, dogs? And then the lowest one I see is that 16, highest is 65. So if I go from 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I'll have space. So this first interval, I'm going to label 10 to 19. So I'm not going to label it 10 to 20. I'm just going to go to 19. Because then the next one starts at 20. So this one is going to be 20 to 29. And then 30 to 39. And so on and so forth. 40 to 49. 50 to 59. And 60 to 69. And again, on your assignment, your graphs are already labeled for you. Okay, so now we are going to add in all of that data. So I'm going to do the same thing I did, where I'm going to go find everything in the teens and cross it off and add in all of those. So I've got 16, 19, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of data. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to color in 4 bars. You don't have to color them all the way and just like shade them lightly. And then for my 20s, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a lot, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it looks like it's all but the top one. Okay, I'm going to let you guys finish this instead of counting out loud. Finish it. We'll meet back together here at the end. Is that rain? Oh. Hey. Still see a few more people shading. Alright, to finish this one out, it asks us what the most common interval is. So there's there's a couple questions. So we'll ask you where the middle is. That's when you count from the outside. Most common, you're looking for the tallest one. So the most common one on this one is 20 to 29 seconds. We might also ask you what the range or what the difference between highest and lowest is. And you would do the highest minus the lowest. Let me look at your assignment and see if there's any other ones. Median, which is middle, age difference, which is range, center of data, median, and outlier, which we talked about outliers. So I think that's it. Hey, any questions right now? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video then. You guys can go ahead and glue those note sheets in.